Hello, welcome back to another video. For those of you who are new here, my name is Rachel. I'm a certified yoga instructor and I specialize in yoga for chronic pain and chronic illness. Today's video is a part of our beginner yoga series, so if you would like to check out the other classes in the series, I'll leave a link in the description box below so you can check out that playlist. And today we are going to be looking at 3 of the most common yoga poses that are done on the floor. So I'm going to show you different variations for each one. If you don't have yoga props at home, that's okay. I'm going to be using a couple of yoga blocks, and if you've got a folded blanket or a folded up towel that you can grab just to have on hand. And we're going to do it kind of like a workshop style. So I'm going to be showing you lots of different options for each pose, and you can kind of experiment and see which one works the best for you. Keep in mind that if you need to take a break at any point during this practice, that is totally okay, and you are always welcome and encouraged to do that. We'll get started with child's pose, Balasana. For this pose, the hips are going to meet the heels. You can keep the knees together, or you can take them wider apart to make a little extra space for the belly and the chest. And then walk the hands forward and drop the forehead as close as it can get to the floor. For many people, the forehead is not going to be able to touch the floor. So to make this pose a little more comfortable, we can actually bring the floor up to us with the use of a yoga block. If you don't have a yoga block, you can fold up a blanket or a towel and rest the forehead right on top of your prop. It's also really common for people to have discomfort in the ankles in this pose. So the tops of the feet, for most people, are not going to be able to lie flat on the floor the way that mine do. I'm actually hypermobile, so this is easy and comfortable for me. But for most people with a normal range of motion, normal range of mobility in their ankles, the feet are not going to rest comfortably on the floor like this. So what you can do is you can curl the toes under so that you're up on the toes instead. Or you can roll up a blanket or a towel and just slide it right underneath that top crease of the ankle. This pose also requires quite a bit of mobility in our hips. So if you notice that your hips are kind of floating up in the air, if they're not connecting with your heels, that's okay. We can bring a cushion or a pillow or a folded blanket or even a yoga block underneath the hips so that the hips have something to rest on here. Another option would be to do this pose with a bolster. If you have a bolster or a stack of pillows that you can lie on top of, you're just gonna put your entire torso on top of the bolster and then rest the forehead on a yoga block or a folded up blanket or towel. If you have any knee injuries, or if this pose just still isn't feeling super comfortable, you can extend the legs behind you and just see how that feels. Child's pose is a pretty ubiquitous yoga pose. You'll find it in most yoga classes. And child's pose is usually promoted as a resting posture. It's supposed to be easy to do, but for most people, it's really not unless you add in some yoga props. If you have tried it with the props now and you're still not feeling super comfortable here, there's also a chair variation you can try. So you'll just sit in your chair with the feet flat on the floor. Knees are about hip distance apart, so the thigh bones are right in line with the hip bones. Take the elbows to your knees and let the palms of the hands touch. And you're going to get all the same benefits in this variation. So we've got lots of options to choose from. Feel free to mix and match your props if you want to. Get really comfortable. And then once you have fully settled in, take a deep breath in through the nose or mouth. Deep breath out. Invite the jaw to soften. Invite the neck and the shoulders to soften. Let the hips become heavy. Give yourself permission to fully rest here for just a little while. We want to stay really mindful as we come out of this pose. The transition between poses is just as important as the pose itself. So you'll walk the hands underneath the shoulders and just very slowly bring yourself up to sit. Pause here for a moment and let the energy settle. Notice how you feel after being in the pose. When you're ready, come onto all fours for tabletop pose. If you'd like, you can pad the knees with a blanket. You can keep the toes curled under, or you can rest the tops of the feet on the mat, whichever feels more natural and comfortable for you. Hips are stacked over the knees and the shoulders are right over the wrists. Keep a soft bend in the elbows and make sure to spread your fingertips really wide so it's like there's an even pie slice between each of your fingers. Really actively press down through all of the knuckles. This is going to give you more stability in your wrists. If you are experiencing any pain in the hands or wrists, you can make fists with your hands and come up onto your knuckles instead. If this still doesn't feel good, you can use yoga blocks, one underneath each hand. And this is going to shift the weight back onto your knees a little bit so there's less pressure on the hands and wrists. Simply widening your stance a little bit can also help take some of the pressure off of the wrists. So just taking the hands a little bit past the shoulders and slightly wider with the fingers turned out can help with this as well. But this is going to change the way that the muscles engage in this pose. So just notice the different nuances you feel in your body. For a completely hands-free option, you can do this pose seated in a chair facing a wall. Feet are flat on the floor and the palms of the hands are pressing into the wall. So find the variation of tabletop pose where you feel stable and you feel like you're getting a comfortable level of challenge. So your muscles are working for you here, but you can still breathe okay and you're not experiencing any pain. Whenever you're ready, we'll start to move through a vinyasa or a series of linked poses called cat-cow. So on your inhale, tilt your pelvis forward and arch through the spine, look up. Exhale, pull the belly button in toward your spine, round through your back body, drop the chin toward your chest. And then again, inhale, come forward. This is cow pose. Exhale, round back for cat pose, like a Halloween cat. So on your inhale, you're evenly arching through the whole spine. Then exhale, press into the palms of the hands like you just got punched in the stomach. Take a couple more cycles of breath like this at your own pace, moving back and forth between cat and cow pose. When you're ready, come back to a neutral tabletop position and then drop the hips to your heels. Just kind of shake out your wrists a little bit, maybe roll them around in some circles. Our next posture is Adho Mukha Svanasana, also known as downward facing dog, another very common yoga pose. And I'm going to show you a chair variation for this one, but I'm going to show you the floor-based version first. So come back into your tabletop pose. Keep the fingertips spread really wide, but walk the hands past your shoulders and turn the fingers out about 45 degrees. This is going to help the shoulders to open up. And then send your hips up and back. You can stay up on your tiptoes with a generous bend in your knees here. This is going to create extra length in your spine. You might have seen pictures of downward facing dog where the yogis have their heels touching the floor, so their feet are flat on the floor in this pose. But again, this requires an excessive amount of mobility in the ankles that most people just don't have. So don't put pressure on yourself to take your heels all the way to the floor in this pose. You will get all of the same benefits by staying up on your toes with your knees bent. If this pose is creating a lot of strain on your shoulder joints or your elbows or your wrists or your fingers, you can actually do this pose with a chair. So you're going to stand in front of the chair with your palms on the seat of the chair. You can hold on to the edges of the seat and then walk the feet back until you're creating that downward facing dog shape with the upper body. If neither of these options feels good, you could do a tabletop pose variation or a child's pose variation instead. So find what feels good. Find that sweet spot where your body is feeling challenged, but you're still comfortable enough to take full deep breaths. On your next exhale, drop your knees to the floor and shift back into your preferred variation of child's pose. And we'll just take rest here for a moment before we close our practice. Just give your body some time to relax after those very challenging poses. As you breathe in through the nose or the mouth, really feel the body expanding with your breath, creating more space in the body. And then as you exhale, invite every muscle to relax and let go. You can take rest here for as long as you would like. And whenever you're ready, remember to come out of this pose really slowly and mindfully. So you're walking the hands underneath the shoulders and slowly pressing yourself into an upright position. Pause here for just a moment to notice the after effects of your practice. Take a couple more deep breaths before you transition back into your day. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. Keep in mind that not all poses are made for all bodies, so if even after trying the different variations, if some of these poses still aren't feeling quite right for your body, that's okay. It doesn't have to be a part of your yoga practice. There are so many different poses for us to choose from, so I'm sure we can find a different one to substitute in its place that's going to give you the same benefits. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I will be happy to connect with you. Thanks so much for being here. Namaste.